a frightened groom who drops his wedding ring in the lake, a clumsy dancer who spoils the party, or a bride who skateboards. Here are the 10 most embarrassing moments of weddings. The wedding ring is undoubtedly the most essential element of any self-respecting wedding, so much so that its absence alone could ruin the entire ceremony. And while in some American comedies, the wacky groom always forgets his wedding ring, there is always a friend or close relative who has another one on hand to save the wedding. Of course, in real life, it's not like that at all, and if you ever forget your ring, you can just say goodbye to the bride. Although there are sometimes some small exceptions, as in this sequence for the least funny, and which comes to us straight from the country of Uncle Sam. It is indeed on the California shore of the Lake Tahoe that this young couple decided to say yes during a ceremony which did not miss originality. Installed on a small wooden pontoon just above the lake, the two young lovebirds had decided to immortalize this magical moment by filming the scene. But at the most crucial moment of the ceremony, the groom, who seemed to be a little scared since the beginning, had a little clumsiness by dropping the precious wedding ring. The incident could have been minimal if the place of the ceremony had been on solid ground, because the ring would have simply rolled a little or rebounded against the wall, and then would have come to rest, ready to be picked up. But as you can see in the pictures, the ring fell directly into the water, through a small crack in the wood of the dock. And since Lake Tahoe is one of the deepest lakes in North America, the chances of being able to retrieve it are obviously minimal. Fortunately for the clumsy husband, the ceremony was able to go on and the bride finally said yes, despite the lack of a ring. The young couple believed that the ring was lost forever because of the depth of the lake, which reaches 501 meters. But this was without counting on the help of a brave local diver who was moved by this story and decided to dive to retrieve the ring and give it to its rightful owner. Hold on tight for the next part, because we prepared a sequence for you for the least staggering. This young American couple decided to get married for better or for worse during a ceremony organized in great pomp by a beautiful sunny day. Everything is going well and everyone is happy when finally comes the most decisive moment of the wedding, the one where the husband has to put the ring on his future wife's finger. It is at this precise moment that the husband's witness, who was standing back until then, will enter the scene. It is him who carries the ring and who must give it to the husband, but because of his probably congenital clumsiness, this last one is going to make a false step on the platform, which makes him collapse of all his length directly under the feet of the bride. A painful chain reaction ensues, dragging the bride and the priest in an uncontrollable fall a few meters below. Fortunately, all this beautiful world will get out of it safe and sound because the two unhappy ones fell in a swimming pool. And except for the clumsiness of this witness, rather Gaston the Gaff, and the hairstyle of the young bride who fell in the water, the wedding could resume without any problem. Many people decide to get married in a church with a very conventional ceremony and in the presence of all the family and friends gathered for the occasion. With so many people present, the slightest mistake can make you lose your head and sometimes even your teeth. This sequence was recorded during a wedding in the purest Christian tradition, with the respect of its liturgical rites such as the host. But at the moment when the young bride crunches the white bread roll, her dental prosthesis is unhooked and literally falls into the glass that she must share with her husband. The poor young bride then takes the chalice from her husband's hands and plunges her fingers in to fish out her front teeth. After this terrible moment of embarrassment, the young woman puts back her dentures and finds her star smile to continue the celebration. During this time, the husband remains quiet, but we all know that deep down, he hopes that only his teeth are false. Some people want to bring a touch of originality to their wedding ceremonies, and if the result is often memorable, it also happens that the fiasco is their sad fate. Take a good look at this sequence filmed during a peaceful wedding party, and which will quickly turn into a nightmare for the newlyweds. Indeed, while all the guests are quietly seated for the traditional cutting of the cake, a group of dancers makes a thunderous entry by gesticulating on a title of the Spice Girls. These feverish and wig-wearing acrobats are in fact the witnesses of the young couple's wedding, and their smashing entrance was part of the show set up to brighten up the ceremony. But as you can see on the pictures, one of the witnesses, probably pushed by an excess of zeal and galvanized by the music, is going to make a step too much, and bam, right in the bullseye. The unfortunate Gaston the Gaff hits the wedding cake with his foot, and the fat collapses like a house of cards. In front of an audience of dumbfounded guests, the delicious and expensive work of art of pastry is completely ruined, and the whole wedding is almost ruined. But that doesn't stop our giddy gaffer from continuing to gesticulate in all directions like a badly tilted pirouette. Skateboard fans will love this sequence, although it may bring back painful memories. During a wedding where the bride fell in love with a skateboarder, the organizers of the ceremony decided to stay in the theme of sliding to illustrate this beautiful romance. The highlight of the show would be the departure of the young couple to their new cozy nest on a skateboard, under the escort of guests and friends also on skateboards. But what you need to know is that the poor young woman has just learned to ride a board and is still in her infancy on the tarmac. In addition to that, the fact that her long, immaculate wedding dress is not really the ideal dress for this kind of sports. That's all it took for what was supposed to happen to finally happen. The poor lady takes the edge of her dress in one of the wheels of her skateboard and falls painfully on the ground. Don't worry, because apart from a few light bruises, the bride came out of it safe and sound, but with the firm will to never ride a board again in her life. If anyone has any reason to object to this wedding, let them speak now or forever hold their peace. You've probably heard that line in a Hollywood movie before, right? It is usually at this moment that someone comes out of nowhere to shout his disapproval and prevent the wedding from going well. You may think that in real life, this kind of situation simply does not exist, but you are wrong, and the proof is in the picture. This sequence shows us a wedding ceremony that was taking place in the most natural way in an Anglican church. Suddenly, while the priest was asking his famous question, a young man in a swimsuit opens the window behind him and quietly poses. The half-naked young troublemaker caused havoc in this peaceful church without the slightest concern for the immense embarrassment he had caused the guests and the newlyweds. Organizing your wedding on an old pontoon over the water was never considered a good idea, and if you remember the Lake Tahoe wedding mishap we showed you earlier, you know why we say that. But if you still haven't learned your lesson, let us show you this video, which will surely make you feel like a cold shower. Look at these happy guests and this newlywed couple, who are posing for the traditional souvenir photo. But wait, did you see what they are standing on? Yes, you saw right. It's an old wooden pontoon, all worm-eaten and rotten to the core. This is, as you know, a very bad place to be in a group, especially with a few overweight people, because this old, cracked dock will certainly not be able to support this excess of weight. And this is exactly what happened. The dock literally broke apart under the feet of the guests and the bride and groom, who almost all ended up in the cold water of the lake. Some newlyweds do not hesitate to pay for the services of a limousine to get their wedding ceremony. Others will choose a less luxurious means of transportation, but certainly not lacking in originality, such as a Victorian-style horse-drawn carriage or even a skateboard, as seen on the video earlier. But in Asia, it is rather the two streets that have the wind in their sails, because it is there that we find the most motorcycles in circulation. Many young couples have only this means of transport, and even when they celebrate their wedding with great pomp, it is often on a simple moped that they will start their honeymoon. On this sequence, which comes to us from China, you can see one of these young couples whose wedding celebrations have just been finished and who thus leave on motorcycle towards their new small cozy nest. But as you can see, the wedding dress is not the most recommended clothing to ride a motorcycle. The young woman had to sit on the side, an uncomfortable and dangerous position to say the least, while holding firmly her bouquet of flowers. She should have rather clutched her husband's jacket, because what is going to happen next is likely to leave her a painful wedding memory. Indeed, while passing on a speed bump, a jolt of the motorcycle destabilized the young woman and made her lose her balance. As a result, she fell and ended up directly on the road, while her young husband continued on his way, not suspecting that his wife was no longer there. Fortunately, the poor bride will only have a few small bruises from this fall, but the young husband is not out of the woods yet, because we know that once back home, he will be entitled to a beautiful scene of household for his disastrous behavior. This hilarious sequence taken during a wedding shows you that it is sometimes a very bad idea to invite children. Look at this young bride who is going to the altar, dragging behind her a long wedding skirt. One can indeed only be moved in front of such a charming spectacle. Finally, until a young boy appears from nowhere to cause chaos. Indeed, the temptation was too big for this little boy, who probably took the dress of the bride for a walking trampoline. And as always, the best for the end, with this image that will remain engraved in the annals of the most embarrassing moments of weddings. Look at this young couple beaming with joy after saying yes in an official ceremony. It was imperative to immortalize this magical moment, and fortunately for that, there was a professional photographer armed with his camera. But at the time of taking the photograph, a sudden gust of wind made raise the dress of the bride, thus revealing her lace underwear. Here is a photo that may well go viral for the greatest misfortune of the young husband. And that's it for today. What do you think of these 10 completely embarrassing moments during wedding ceremonies? Which one of them amused you the most? Tell us in the comments, and if you liked this video, don't forget to put a like and subscribe and activate the notifications. See you soon for new discoveries out of the ordinary.